going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Investing Weekly. So on these episodes, I'm going to give you a little rundown of what has happened the last week, what I have coming up, and then also we always finish it off with some Q&As that I pull from my socials directly from you guys. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the end to catch those Q&As, but let's just jump right into it. So we had a pretty crazy week the last 2 weeks. I apologize I didn't get to do one of these last week because I was in Vegas, but it's been pretty hectic. So we got 2 or 3 houses under contract right now. One of them we're waiting to have signed signatures, which is pretty much already a done deal. So we have 4 active projects going on. I'll give you a little budget breakdown on all those in a second. We have 2 appraisals that just got finished. 2 of my projects. Those numbers came back okay. I'll do a little breakdown of both of them as well. What else do we have? We have 2 closings coming up next week, and then we have also 2 refinances finishing next week. So for the projects that I have going on, the fourplex, we're at $31,000 on that budget. Some major ticket items in that one where we had to replace all of the galvanized plumbing in that property. Guys, when you're doing your rehabs, you want to knock out stuff like that that could possibly be issues down the road while you're doing the rehab. Because, for example, that property is on 1 water meter. So say we have an issue with one of those galvanized plumbings leaking and stuff like that, not only are we going to have to cut into the drywall, replace that stuff while that tenant's living there, it's also going to have the water turned off for all 4 tenants that are living there. So now you're not inconveniencing just one person, all 4 of them. So we started, at first we were just kind of cutting and splicing parts that were bad and replacing them as we go. And then once we got to the second unit, we noticed that it was going to be basically all these units were going to have those same issues. So you know what? Why go 50% right now? They're all vacant. We're already doing drywall work. We might as well just replace all the plumbing. So we ran all new PVC throughout. That way we won't have those issues with the galvanized plumbing, which also makes it easier for the plumber as well, because they're not trying to capture an old fitting onto a new PVC pipe or something like that. When you just go straight PVC right from the inlet, it makes it actually a lot easier, so a lot less labor intensive, and they can literally just leave the galvanized piping there. They don't got to try to rip it out or anything like that. They literally just left it there. The second issue we ran into there is we had a gas leak, and so the stove and the water heater were both gas in all these units, and they all have individually metered gas meters, which is nice, but the one pipe was leaking literally directly underneath the floor, and there was no access to it. So we were gonna have to cut up the floor that already had flooring down. So it was actually cheaper, and instead of dealing with trying to track down, because the gas company couldn't even tell us where this leak was. They just said, hey, it's in the living room. That's all they know. So at that point, we're like, you know what? I just converted that stove and that water heater over to electric and just called it a day, because trying to track down a natural gas leak underneath the house or underneath the apartments was going to be a massive pain in the ass. So, and also is going to slow down our time frame to when we can get those inspected for the housing people that are moving in. So it was one of the decisions. I mean, it cost me like, I think $1,200 with the electrician and all the materials and everything, which is, you know, $1,200 is a lot of money, but at the same time, it's like, who knows what it would have cost trying to tear that floor up. It could have been a small pinhole leak, or the whole thing could have been leaking at that point. And also then you gotta pull a permit because it's a gas line. So you know what? Let's not deal with this. Let's just go with electric in that unit and convert everything. So we did that. Project Marlin's at $40,000 out of a $60K budget. That's the one we're taking from a 3.1.5 to a 4.2. That project's been coming along pretty well. We're probably 2 weeks away from finish that. Project Swordfest is back on track after that issue with the foundation we had. We're 30K into that budget, which is halfway into that property as well. I'll post some videos of that one. So that was actually coming along really nice. The whole interior looks nice. They guys painted today. The windows are in, roof's done, the kitchen's coming together as well. So that project's coming along pretty well as well. So, and then the new one we just started, Project Bluegill, that took like 2 weeks to get the electrical meter put in. So the guys are just now starting on the addition this week. So, but all in all, guys, we've had a crazy busy week. We have 3 housing inspections coming up this week. Actually, 4 housing inspections coming up this week. So that's been pretty wild. So crazy week, but hey, crazy's good. So let's jump into some Q&As with you guys. So these ones I'm going to break down kind of like my quick answer at first, and then I'm also going to take it more in depth because these questions are actually pretty good. I could have made an episode just on these questions, probably one of them for a question, just talked for easily 20-30 minutes about it because they are pretty good topics. So that's why I chose these questions to break down at this point. So the first one I got, it says, how do I identify a good area to buy a BRRRR in my market? So I'm going to just rattle off the quick 5 things that I think that you should be looking for, and then I'll get more in depth with them. So you want to find the shittiest house on the best street. People always look for deals and they look for all this ARV, this ARV, that. Guys, if it's that they're all shitty properties around you, you don't want to buy it because you're not going to have those good comps in the end. So again, number 1, you want to find the shittiest house in the best street. 2, you need to be in like the medium price range for that home in that area. You don't want to be in the low income area because you want to be able to have that high appraisal for to get your money back out of it. And you don't want to be in the high end area because you're not going to be able to cash flow if you're buying in a super high end area. Those houses are really mainly homestead properties. So the rents are never going to equal what your mortgage will be after you get that refinance, especially with you have a high mortgage with high interest rates right now. The third thing you're going to want is rental demand. Look for hospitals. Look for factory workers, mid-level jobs that are going to be consistently people coming in and out for rental demand. If you look at an area and it's super oversaturated with there's 5 houses on the same street for rent, that's probably not going to be an area that people want to rent to. Most people only look for the little things. They look for, good school districts. Guys, that's what everybody looks for. Those people are typically going to be home buyers. So you need to kind of find the things that the people are coming in for work and stuff like that. That's where typically the renters are going to be. And again, you want to stay in that medium zone because if they're qualified enough to afford that high mortgage, they're probably qualified enough to buy a house. So they're not going to be renting. So you really want to factor in that when you're doing your rental pool. And my 5th thing, guys, stay away from new construction areas. If your competition is new construction and you're trying to take a 40s home and remodel and do a BRRRR, that new construction home is going to be a crushing comp for you because they're going to see what those prices are. And honestly, right now, new constructions have the best prices typically because their builders trying to offload inventory. Those are not good comps for you to go up against. You want to find the houses that have good flips. There's lots of older homes that there's other flippers going and remodeling them, selling them, giving that high appraisal. You want to be comped against flips of older homes. You don't want to be comped against new construction. And now the same thing, when you're doing the rental side of that, now you're also renting against older homes. Why would somebody want to stay in your house for $100 more? They can go rent a brand new home. So that's another thing you got to look for too, not just the new construction side of buying, also the renting side. Are there new construction homes for rent? Because there's also a very big inventory out there of build to rent. That's a big new thing with recent investors is that they're building to rent. And honestly, it's a great strategy. If you think about it, it's literally the BRRRR strategy, but you have a new home. You buy the lot, you build it, you refinance in a long-term debt, you stick a tenant in it, and it's a perfect strategy. So it's very, very popular now. So you got to look out for, you got to know your competition and know your area. So you really want to hone in on those areas where it's the middle of the road, and because that's where you're going to find most of your renter pool is going to be in that area where, I'm not saying you can't buy in a high dollar area. If you find a great deal and you're going to make a bunch of money on the refinance side of it, great. Obviously, you still want to be able to buy in a good area because you still want to have that appreciation. But you might not see the appreciation like if you were in, let's say, that top A class area. But that's where investors right now are getting in a lot of trouble because you can buy in that A class area, but are you going to make any money? Are you going to be able to cash flow? And with high interest rates, you're really not. Because people, if they're staying in it for their home and it's not an investment property, they're willing to pay more because they typically have a better interest rate and they're living there. So they're not really caring about, where we're trying to get, okay, hey, his house rents for $2,500, my mortgage is going to be $2,600. That doesn't pencil out. They don't care. They just see that's their house. They want to live there. They'll pay the $2,600. So that's why you kind of got to be in that medium area. And also because that keeps in a better tenant pool. A lot of people search after these 2%, 3% deals, and they're in C and D class areas. Guys, they're not worth the headache. Wholesalers send me these deals all the time. It's like, yeah, but it fits your 70% of the ARV rule. Yeah, it does, but it's in a deteriorating area. One, when you go to rehab it, you're not going to have a good comp on the back end because no one's going in there and flipping houses in the ghetto. You know, they're typically going for cheap either way, whatever condition they're in because of the area. So it's like, yes, you can go in and get that. And another thing too is, guys, appreciation. Even though if you're buying for cash flow, you still want to have appreciation. Even in the areas in my market, I'll look back 20 years on the MLS and you can see these properties were selling for almost the same price. And it's because they're in C and D class areas. They're just capped. No one's going to pay that. They have that, yeah, they might have slow appreciation. Like, for example, like the one house, I think I saw it sold for like $80,000 in 2005 or whatever. And now it's only selling for like 110. It's like, guys, that's 20 years. You don't want to have that kind of appreciation in 20 years. That's not good. Just because you got to think about it. Your repair cost doesn't matter if it's in Class D or Class A are the same. If you have a water leak, that water leak is going to cost you the same if it's an $80,000 house or a $200,000 house. So why would you want to buy the $80,000 house that you're still going to have to maintain over those 20 years? A roof on a 1,500 square foot house in the ghetto is the same cost of a roof in an A-class area that's 1,500 square feet. So yes, the cash flow does look attractive, but over the course of that time, if you bought the property for $80,000 in 2002 and now it's only worth 110, guys, that is like 1% appreciation. That is like less than 1%. It's horrible. So you don't want that. So you always want to buy in areas where you're still going to have some appreciation. It might not be, you know, like I said, you can't have that top tier because you're eventually going to get priced out and you're, you know, not about cash flow. But a lot of us still do that because they don't really care about cash flow. Now, if you're buying strictly for appreciation, which again, I don't think you should buy just for one. Like there's people who say, oh, there's cash flow and there's appreciation, and you can't have both. I don't think that's true. I think you can have both, and you should have both. But I think you should buy in different areas for each other. So like some markets might be great for appreciation. Like for example, like a Houston or in Austin down the road. Obviously Austin's not doing very well right now, but in Corpus I can find cash flow, even in the decent areas. But even in the good areas, those properties are never going to appreciate like the Heights in Houston is going to appreciate. So how I'm doing it, where I'm going for both, is I'm buying my Corpus portfolio for cash flow, because you can find cash flow here that you can't find in Houston. And then when I buy in Houston or San Antonio, I'm trying to find those A-class areas where I don't care if the property just breaks even, because my portfolio will still cash flow because of the Corpus properties. So now some people will say, well, why don't you just buy like D and A in the same city? It's like, well, again, now you're getting in that D quality property, which you don't want, and you're gonna have the headaches and all the tenants headaches and stuff like that. So if you can find a market that's close enough to yours, like, hey, this market has cash flow, but it's in a good area in that market, and then you can go buy and say a big metro, like say you were near Dallas or Fort Worth or something like that, or an area that's, you know, gonna have good, strong appreciation, and you don't really care, you're not looking for the cash flow there. That's how I think you can get both. Me personally, that's my thing. So thanks for asking the question. We're gonna go to the next one. Is it the best time to buy right now with high interest rates, or wait for rates to drop? Ooh, this is a good one. So it's kind of like pick your poison. As rates drop, prices are most likely going to go up. And also competition will go up. So I personally think right now it's still a great time to buy because the buyers have the leverage. You can ask for inspections, you can ask for longer quotes, you can ask for concessions, you can ask for more closing costs. There's lots of things you can negotiate because the buyers have more control right now. If you wait till, say, rates do come down, you're going to be back to where now there's going to be all these influx of buyers and the sellers have the control, and you might not get as good of a deal. They always say, oh, you can always refinance the rate, which is true. My caveat to that is, guys, we don't know which way rates are going to go. There's a very good chance that rates could go up, We don't know that. So I'm saying, I think to answer the question, I think you still buy now, because I think of it as almost like dollar cost averaging. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that or not, but it's a stock market trade. It's called you buying at the same time, basically, no matter what the market's doing. Sometimes you might be buying it as it's going up, sometimes you might be buying it as when it's going down. But the thing is, you're looking for deals no matter what time it is. Because it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So especially if we're doing BRRRRs, you're always going to have the forced appreciation. You're always buying at a discount. So it really doesn't matter when you buy. Like, that's why I'm still buying heavily right now, is because it doesn't matter what the market's really doing, because it's not the stock market. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and be 20% down. Is there a chance that year over year we could lose 20%? Very possible in some markets. But if you buy in January, all you really care about is, hey, by March when this project's done, what is it going to appraise for? And then after that, the rest is just noise. You know real estate's going to continue up the long term. If you look back in 07 when all those home prices were inflated or whatever, and then the market crashed, if you look at the price of that home in 07 and the price of the home now, as long as you didn't sell it during the crash, you're still in a great situation. If you own a house in 06 or 07, even though on paper your portfolio probably took a massive hit in 08, but if you still own that asset today, I guarantee you, you're still sitting pretty well. So again, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. So that's why I like the idea of dollar cost averaging. Essentially, is just always be buying, and you're just buying a deal. You're trying to use that formula, hey, I'm trying to buy a deal. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter about the time or what interest rates are. Obviously, you still want the cash flow, you still want it to pencil out, which is a lot harder. But that's the same thing. We don't know. Rates can go up higher. We have no idea. Even though I know Trump's sitting there saying, "Oh, I want rates at 2%." Powell might leave next year, and then the new guy comes in and raises rates. We don't know. You don't know. Historically speaking, we've seen higher interest rates. We've seen 10, 11, 13, 14% interest rates before in our country. So it's not completely unheard of. But the good thing with real estate is usually when that's happening, it's because inflation is running rampant, which if you own real estate, that is the biggest hedge against inflation. Another reason why I don't think you should wait, because if there's a possibility that rates do go up, it's because of inflation. So right now, I'm saying lock in the long-term debt at a fixed rate. Try to stay away from variable mortgages and stuff like that, because you don't know. Like I said, rates could very well go up. I'm buying loans that don't have a prepayment penalty. That's what I'm doing right now, because I do think rates are going to come down. But does it mean I could be wrong? Absolutely. But at the same time, those loans are not super short term. They're still 5-year loans before the balloons do. And that gives me plenty of time. Plus, they're amortized over 20 years. So every month I'm paying a decent amount of principal. So I know even if the market dips, I'm still going to be able to refinance again in 5 years no matter what, because I'll be paying down that mortgage balance pretty heavily over the next 5 years at a 20-year schedule. So again, it kind of ran off on a little rampage there, but to go back, the original question is it the best time to buy now with high interest rates, or wait for a rate to drop? And again, guys, it's pick your poison. Do you want to, as rates drop, prices are most likely to continue to go up, competition will go up, you're not going to be able to get good deals, the sellers are going to be more in control, you're not going to have the leverage when you buy. You can always buy now and refinance later on down the road, but again, you still want to lock in that long-term debt in case, like I said, rates do go up. And again, we like that idea of dollar cost averaging. No matter what, we're buying a deal. That's what we're looking for. So it doesn't matter if it continues to go down, you're trying to buy as deep as you possibly can. Because I don't really care if the market goes down 2 or 3% more. I know I'm going to be getting a better deal now by negotiating the price down, where even if it does go down 2 or 3 more percent, I'm still in a comfortable situation knowing that I got a property at such a good deal that it doesn't really matter if the market continues to go down 2 or 3 more percent this year. I don't really care. So there's that one. And the last question for today, because these are pretty good questions. Should I use a HELOC on my primary to buy my first rental property? This is something I get asked very often because it's very common. A lot of people have equity in their homes. Guys, only get a HELOC to buy another investment property if it is a short-term loan. What does that mean? So if you're doing a BRRRR, if you don't know what it is, buy, rehab, refinance, repeat, something where you're going to be getting your money back out, or like a flip, that's when you can use a HELOC because they're typically short-term, they're typically adjustable. I see a lot of people making mistakes when they go out and they use that HELOC to put 20% down on an investment property. Guys, how are you going to pay that HELOC back? You need to be able to pay it back. And you're not going to be able to do that if you just go buy a 20% down investment property and then you just assume that over the next 4 or 5 years or 2 or 3 years or whatever, you're going to get that 20% equity by appreciation and then refinance. Oh, and then I see this 10 times a day on the Bigger Pockets forums and stuff like that. Guys, the days of going 20% appreciation in a couple of years are gone. So again, the question was, should I use a HELOC on my primary to buy my first rental property? Only if it's short term. You only want to use it if you're doing a BRRRR where you're going to have it for 6 months out, you're going to do the rehab and refinance and you pay it off. It's actually a very good strategy. I wish I had a HELOC that had a ton of equity in it because it's going to save you a ton of points from having to use hard money and stuff like that if you don't have the cash, because typically HELOCs have like no closing cost fees or just something as like cheap as like an appraisal. So it's super, super awesome. It's usually with the lender you already have. You're not over leveraging yourself. Because if you used it, you still have the equity, obviously, because they're not going to give you 100% equity in the pocket. It's only going to be 80% typically, up to 90% in some lenders. And it's usually very cost effective. So yes, should you use a HELOC to buy your first rental property? Yes, only if it's short term. But all right, guys, that wraps up today's episode. If you guys have any more questions you'd like to answer, please shoot me a DM, submit them. Guys, I love all support. The YouTube channel has been awesome. This is something, like I said in the past, where I'm a very private person, and I really took a step out on a limb doing this to begin with, and the support that I've seen from you guys has been absolutely awesome. So again, please share the page, subscribe. I'll see y'all around.